Y'all, Wizard101 just released a teaser that we absolutely need to talk about. Prepare yourself for something epic. What you see on your screen is what they tweeted out today. And this looks to be our most detailed teaser yet on the upcoming dungeon in the spring update. Now, if y'all are unaware, I feel like this is just something that, you know, they've started to do maybe over the past couple of years, but the spring update is when they do a gauntlet now. Every spring, they put out, like, you know, basically like a mini dungeon. I honestly think they're way better than most dungeons in the game. They're actually like very, very high quality. The graphics tend to be way on another level. Like, it looks like a really, really detailed update to me normally. But this one is looking even more hype than particular just based off of this teaser alone. The enemy, it looks like some kind of... First off, it's a floating skeleton. Second off, the dude has arms for a cape. I think it's safe to say that this is going to be a very, very iconic villain. We don't know what his deal is yet. I'm going to assume it's some sort of like crazy death magic or some kind of thing involved. Like, I think it's going to be a powerful enemy, and that's exciting. But besides the cool ass design of the boss, I think the real story is in the characters charging up at him. And why do I say that? Right now, while this teaser dropped today, there were two other teasers that I actually covered in literally the last video, and they involve sneak peeks at some of these characters, right? We actually have already seen the Life Raven, the one that's shooting thunderbolts at the skeleton dude. We've also seen like the musical weasel looking ass. I think that's the one that's like strumming his guitar and the magic is coming out of it. But added on to those two, we now see 4 more unique characters that we've never seen before. I want to say 2 of them are from Zafaria, but they look like way more than a reskin. Like, I've never seen like the actual details on these character models before. And the other 2 are giving Grizzlehound Wintertusk vibes. I think one's a bird, one's a wolf. And while already the fact that they actually look unique, I can appreciate that. I honestly think the Wiz, sometimes they get a little carried away with the reskins. I think from what the teasers look like, I think it's very safe to say, like, these are new character models. They look kind of cool. Maybe they look like creatures we've seen, but I feel like they're gonna, you know, I think this is gonna be a character-driven dungeon. But beyond that, we've also gotten one hint as to what this dungeon is gonna look like. We've been told by the devs on a live stream that this is gonna be an RPG dungeon. Now, for a lot of people like me, when someone says a role-playing game dungeon, they don't really know what anybody's talking about, because Wiz is already an MMORPG. Basically, I think I've had it explained to me like by people that do get it, and basically it's like you play a role in a team on a dungeon. And I think the way they're gonna like kind of translate that over to Wiz is, I think you're gonna be able to do this dungeon as any one of these 6 characters. Now, I'm gonna assume it's still a 4-person dungeon and you can only pick 4 out of these 6 characters, but I guess they might make it so you can do more. I don't think that's a possibility, but if it is, this is gonna be even more unique than a normal dungeon. But I think in choosing a character, you're gonna polymorph into them, you're gonna get custom decks, and you're gonna be able to figure out ways to combo stuff. Now, what I found really funny is most people, when they looked at the teaser, outside of the people that were excited about it, the top comment that I noticed, especially on Twitter, people were saying, I hope this is not a raid. And I think what that highlights is that I think Wiz has actually not been that bad at putting out high effort dungeons in the past, but so many of the really notable ones have been raids and therefore have been inaccessible that people have a pretty negative association with dungeons in general. While this one, I really doubt it's a raid, because raids tend to be in the summer update. I think this is just a gauntlet, like the ones that we've seen before, the Lively Mire gauntlet, we've seen the Forbidden Library gauntlet. I do think, however, the mechanics in this gauntlet might actually be somewhat like a raid. Who really knows? And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Right? We've already kind of seen them dabble in it with, you know, the Nightmare Dungeon challenge mode when it first came out, but even that was somewhat unpopular. I have a feeling what they're actually going to do with this gauntlet is, I think they're going to make it not actually feel like a raid and fall pretty hard on this idea of becoming another character. What do I think this would look like? Well, we don't really need to look that much further than what they've already done with the magic weaving quests that involve polymorphing into the champions that you're, you know, for the school that you're weaving into. And this is something that I really don't think gets enough credit. Obviously, the actual, like, you know, dungeon aspect of this, it's just a tower. This isn't anything serious. But a lot of these decks are actually, they're even more unique than you would think, right? Right now, I'm a balance that's weaving into fire running this dungeon. And because of that, not only do I get spells that are balanced, I also obviously get spells that are fire because I'm weaving into fire, but I also get spells that I can combine in a way that only a balanced fire can do. I think what they did with the magic weaving quests already, I think they set the blueprint out for making fights feel really unique. I think this is going to be the first real high level gauntlet, especially for like max levels. It's gonna be the first one in a while where we're not just like, you know, literally spamming AoEs with shadow enhanced hits and buffing. We're gonna have have custom decks that are actually hopefully going to be like, you know, kind of nuts. What are the potential pitfalls of this? I think this is something we need to also talk about. As exciting as becoming another thing is, I feel like that's actually big for the playability and the replayability of a dungeon. I think Wiz players, especially those that do PvE, I'm guilty of this as well, we simply prefer the path of least resistance. And I think what I noticed with the weaving quest very, very specifically, while yes, there are ways to speed it up, there are no real ways to like make the, you know, the fight shorter than maybe 15 minutes, especially at the end. The only way to speed it up is by teaming up with people, but I feel like the thing with magic weaving quest specifically is that your tools are similar enough, because if you're all doing the same dungeon, you're all weaving into the same thing, there's not as much of an opportunity to synergize. So hopefully the tedious nature of those magic weaving quests, I really hope they avoid it, simply because the decks are going to be different enough, and they also need to be able to synergize, right? While I don't think this dungeon is going to be as simple as buff stacking into an AoE, I think that would actually kind of defeat the whole point of polymorphing into a whole ass different creature to begin with. I do think there needs to be ways to increase damage very, very easily in a coordinated way if you pull the right cards and you do the right things. I think it should be like a puzzle in itself, but when people figure it out, it should be relatively easier to do, especially as you get to know the forms and get to know their decks better and better. Will they do that with things like fusion formulas, which would literally give you bonus damage for combining spells? Will they do that by making certain combos with certain characters that are picked, you know, way better? We don't know, but this could be the first non-simplistic dungeon that's also accessible in an extremely long time. I think that's extremely like an understated thing. I've been saying this in every video covering a gauntlet in general. I really, really hope that we can actually get the gear from the, you know, from these characters. That would make this one, like, I would want to run it if there were like literally gear that dropped that either maybe you could look like the boss, because that looks really cool, or maybe you could look like the individual characters that you're picking if this is really like a polymorph based dungeon. I'm so invested in the idea of turning into other creatures for this dungeon. What this could still be, however, this could also take advantage of a different mechanic, which is you can have a companion and not turn into the character. In my opinion, if that's what this is, this teaser is crazy, because then you should see wizards with the people. So I'm pretty convinced that this is going to be a polymorph gauntlet, and it's going to open up a lot of possibilities that didn't exist before. Let's hope the drops are worth it, because there's no level increase, but I'm really hoping. But I think the big takeaway from this teaser is it's not just like, you know, 4 characters of which you can become one randomly. Like, this is actually going to be a dungeon where you can completely play differently each time, and I think that's always a good thing for Wiz. I think that that's a good thing for something that the spring update is focused on. I don't think gauntlets were as replayable as this one looks like it's gonna be. Let me know what you guys think of the teaser. Let me know what you guys think of what I have to say about the polymorph fights. Do y'all think it's gonna be a polymorph dungeon, or do you guys think that an RPG gauntlet means something else altogether? I look forward to reading all of y'all's thoughts. Drop a like if you enjoyed, leave a sub if you're new, and as always, if somebody hasn't told you you're awesome today, they doing something wrong. Stay awesome, y'all. See y'all soon. And yeah.